podcast that you're listening to is being presented to you in cooperation with the SJ Network. If you're a person who'd like to appear on a podcast, contact Stephen Joyner at s-j-network.com. Let's get on with the show.
On today's episode of The Sherpa Screening Room, it's the second part of a two-part interview with actor Larry Hankin. Larry's been in almost 200 movies and TV shows.
By the way, I've got wonderful news. I passed my screen test.
That is wonderful news. Congratulations.
Thanks. Now I can sell screens to everybody.
Attention, rebels of the Sherpalution. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. We would like to give you a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial simply by heading to www.audibletrial.com/Sherpa. There are over 180,000 titles of audiobooks and podcasts, including this one, to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. And now, the one and only Mr. Bruce will lead you into the Sherpa Chalet. As a reminder, tonight's dinner special is our signature Big Mac. We actually stole it from McDonald's, but the Sherpa signed off on it.
Coming to you from Sherpa Chalet in beautiful downtown Mount Podcastia, it's time for entertainment interviews in the Sherpa Screening Room. Grab an aisle seat and a bucket of popcorn, but don't crunch too loud or you'll miss the show. Now, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hey there, rebels of the Sherpalution. This is Jim, the podcast Sherpa, and you are listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. And it is a presentation of Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts. Of course it is. And you're here, and I'm here. And guess what? If you missed last week's episode, it was part one of my interview with actor Larry Hankin. And Larry has been in close to 200 movies and television shows. And now he's got a great new autobiography out, and he's got lots of stories to tell. And it's interesting, in this part of the interview, he actually says, I'm more of a storyteller than an actor. And I definitely believe that, having had a conversation with him a couple of years ago, and he had some amazing stories. If you didn't catch that interview the first time around, you can have a listen to it on any podcast app that you might like, or even like Podimo or Podopolo, where the podcaster gets paid when you follow it. Shh, tell everybody. It's not a secret. I don't know why I'm whispering. But anyway, if you'd like to hear it on those apps or on Sherpalution.com, of course. And we will delve into part two of my interview with Mr. Larry Hankin right about now. Larry, I was looking over your IMDb resume, and I mean, as we said, like almost under 200 movies and TV shows, and you've played all sorts of characters. You've played God, and you've played homeless people, and probably everything in between, I would imagine. Is there a special role, I mean, even out of all the things that you've done, that you would have loved to have had?
A role that I didn't get that I wanted?
Yeah, or even, something that maybe even looking back, you could have said that, well, yeah, I would have loved to have had that part. If, anything along those lines.
No, because I don't have the soul of an actor. I'm a good actor. I know I'm a good actor, but I don't have it. I don't have the soul. So there's the things that actors have to do that I just rankle at. I mean, man, what are you putting me through this? I mean, like, driving out to the valley for costume fittings. And now if you're an actor, you love that stuff. That's part of the gig, man. If you want to be like an oil painter on canvas, you have to mix paint. You have to go out and buy the paint. You have to mix it, and mixing paint is not easy. I mean, for a painter, if you want like a subtle green, not a deep green, so you have to do that. Well, if you're not a painter, if you don't have the soul of paint, that bugs you. Why can't I just buy a tube of this color? Why do I have to mix it? Well, but if you're an artist, you love that. That's part of that's part of the gig. Mixing paint, and putting it on canvas and molding it and getting people to react. But I don't have that. I can take acting or leave it. So there's no, okay, so with that as my excuse, there's no part that I really thought, wow, man, I could have done that. The only way I would do that is if I went to an audition. Here's the only equivalent that I really do to answer your question. I would audition for something and I wouldn't get it, but I would watch the show to see who did get it. And that's when I would go, they fucking took him and not me? What the fuck? How did that happen? I would, so that's the only time where, when I would go, what? Who, so that part of acting, which is part of acting. If you want to be an actor, you got to like that part too. I mean, You may not like it as much as being in front of a camera when it's rolling, but you understand that you got to go through the stations of the cross to get in front of the camera. I don't understand that at all. Mm-hmm. If I'm such a good actor, what am I doing here auditioning for you? I know more than you. That's where I would walk into the room and I'd say, these people are dweebs and dorks, and I got to perform for them. First of all, these people are not the people I'm going to work for. These people are the casting people, because 5 times out of 10, which is 50% of the time, when you get to the set, the director, you're meeting the director for the first time. He wasn't there for the audition. He was assigned to you, or you were assigned to him. So there's a whole reintroduction. And sometimes the director would say, oh, well, why are you doing it that way? Because I auditioned this way. This is why I got the job. Mm-hmm. Well, I want you to do it another way. So you do it another way, but then you go, oh, come on, blah, blah, blah. I saw you. Who are you talking to?
We were looking for a little quiet on the set.
Who is that?
That was my wife, actually.
I thought so. Okay, cool.
He said hello.
Tell him I said hi.
She says hello.
Hello. We're working here.
He said we're working.
We're at work. We're digging ditches right now. But no, you can't borrow my shovel. No, I got to do this. So anyway, that's so any job that I wanted that I didn't get, no, because I wanted it. If I didn't want it, I wouldn't be auditioning. So if I auditioned, I'd want it. But the only one that I thought I should get and I didn't get, and it stayed with me more than an hour. And I don't remember. It was somebody in somebody's big day, or something. 2 guys' names. Somebody and somebody's, and with Keanu Reeves. It was one of his first movies when he was a young man. So they had
Excellent Adventure.
That. Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the actors in that, one of the characters was a ghost, white face, white guy, skull. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. I auditioned for that part, and I thought I should have gotten it. That was one of the things where I watched a movie and they said, "Hey, he got that." I was really, but yeah. I mean, once I vented, then it was over. But that was the only one, and it's not an important part. It's not a big part. It's not a great part. So I just chose that one out of the millions of auditions that I've done. And I thought, no, man, they were completely wrong, as opposed to the other actors who got parts I auditioned for. And I auditioned for that one, and I didn't get that one. But that one, for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason I thought, no, that I should have got that. And boom, boom. But the only one that I really wanted and I got, but it's the only one that I ever 2, but was Tom Pepper for Seinfeld, Tom Pepper, the Kramer, and Old Joe. Old Joe, oh man, that was such a great, for me, for Larry Hankin. I just wanted to do that part because because I knew I could do it well, and I knew who the guy was. I knew Old Joe. My uncle was Old Joe. I had an uncle who I was doing. And he installed oil burners. So he wore the same clothes. He got dirty, and he came, with oil all over and blah, blah, blah. And so that's why I wanted to do it, because I knew Old Joe. I just knew the guy. And Seinfeld, I just thought, I just wanted to do Kramer. It's not the part. It was like a dare. It was the only time I ever took a dare. Like, I thought, at the time, Kramer was an icon in television. I mean, he was like he was a franchise.
Sure.
I mean, they gave him his own sitcom because of it. I mean, he screwed it up, the dope. But, he's just a control freak. I mean, you gotta like back off, man. Because I know him. We were friends. We knew each other way before Kramer was a twinkle in anyone's eye. So because we looked the same kind of, so we auditioned for the same parts a lot. So we always would meet at these auditions. So he was the one who recommended me to do the part of Kramer, to imitate him. Because, hey, get Larry, man. We actually worked as brothers in a sitcom, a restaurant sitcom. It didn't last very long, but we acted together, so we knew one another. So he recommended me, but I just it wasn't because he recommended me or because he was my friend. It was just because the character he created, coming through the door and all that stuff.
Sure.
I said, man, if I am an actor, if I can act, then I want to do that. If I can do stuff good enough for people to hire me, that would be a challenge to imitate an icon. Because if you don't do it right, fans will complain, man. They say, hey, man, you did a bad Kramer. Hey, boo, man. I mean, yeah, they really get on your ass if you diss their icon, their idol. I've seen it. So I thought it's worth a risk just to do that. I mean, I was so obsessed with, man, I could do him, man. I could do him. But I got the role, and that was really cool of Larry David and Seinfeld to let me try it. Oh, you want to do Kramer, huh? You think you're good enough? I mean, it was one of those. They got to me. They got to my ego, or the writer, or however that worked out. So that was the only one. But yeah, I mean, I'm not an actor. I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm a funny guy. Mm-hmm. I'm a storyteller, basically Aesop. That's Aesop.
It's interesting that you say that, because when your book came out, the first thing that came to mind, it was the last interview that we had. We spoke about 2 years ago. We weren't on video or anything like that. And I said, this man has an interesting way of telling a story that draws you in. And I was curious, would you make that guy an audiobook? Would you consider doing that?
Oh, no, that's already, I've already told the publishers, hey, man, I want to do an audiobook, and B, I want to do the audiobook.
Yes. It's not going to work any other way, I think, if you're not telling your story.
Well, but I am. I mean, okay. Well, a writer, a couple of people have told me this. People, you hand out the manuscript before you send it to the publisher. Mm-hmm. So a couple of people said the same sort of thing. And what they said was, the reason that they liked it, and they laughed. And they said, the reason that it's so good, Larry, is because it sounds like you're just talking to me. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm reading. It sounds like you're telling me the story, which is true, because what I did was I recorded the book.
Okay.
In other words, once a week, I would call an audio engineer. We had it all set up. On Saturday, from 10 to 11 a.m., I would call, and he would just record me. I would say, okay, I want to talk about Seinfeld and Breaking Bad for the hour. Okay, and he'd say, okay. And he'd say, and recording, 1, 2, 3, recording. Okay, go, Larry. And I would talk, and then he would like interrupt. They would say, okay, what did you mean by that? And I go, blah, 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 blah. So just like a Zoom thing.
Right.
And then he would, now, here's the trick. There was a trick to it. Trick is that I didn't know this, but Microsoft has an app that you can feed sound into it and it'll print it out. That's amazing, man. At least to me, it is. So that's what he had the app, and I said, I can't, I'm not into digital. So you get the app and you do it. So I would do this 8 times. We did eight Saturdays for an hour, 8 hours. And what I would do is I'd talk for an hour and he would record it. Then he would put it through this Microsoft app and he would send me the pages. He would send me the 2 things. He'd send me the finished recording, but he would send me the typed out script of that hour. And then I would, it was a file. That's what he sent me. And I would then retype it to be read. Because there's a lot of stuttering, a lot of ums and uhs, and or just different trips. A side trip where I would talk about which I would cut out. No, let's keep it on track. So I would aim the thing, and I would mostly it was editing and cutting, not really rewriting anything, but just making it readable. And that's the book. So that's true that your wish to have me tell it. But that's the kind of the personality of the book. It sounds like I'm talking to you.
Right. Like we're having a conversation as we are now.
Well, we're having a conversation, yeah. And I didn't know that going in, but after we finished the book, me and the sound guy, the recorder guy, and he sent me the last one, and I sent him the manuscript just to show him what I had done. And then I handed it out, and that's what came back. That, hey, man, it sounds like you're just talking. It's speech, not writing. It's speech. So that's kind of cool. I got to remember that for my next book. That's a good way to write a book.
Sure. And especially when it's coming from you, it's the purest version of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can do that naturally. I mean, that's why my learning curve was fast on the open mic nights. I would tell a story just to get it out, just to find out what the story was. But the second time I did it, it was already being edited and rejiggered to make it funnier and more direct and not to be distractive, just solid, And I just did it normally. I didn't even know I was doing it. It was just at the end of about 5 or 6 tellings of the same story, I'd have a hunk. I'd have this could go into my act as is. I don't have to work on it anymore. Let me try something else now. Boom. And I would just, and then it was after a while that I started to see that. And it worked well for improv, whatever that natural thing is. I mean, musicians have their natural thing. Painters have their natural. It's an innate thing. There's a connection to the medium is what it is. You just know how it works. And so that did me a great favor that I had it. And I didn't know it. I just would get up and do it. So I never wrote anything, ever. I never put pen to paper or pencil to pad. And I wondered about that. I tried it several times to write, a 3-minute hunk or whatever. But I just can't tell what I wrote. I can't tell the story of what I wrote. I can't tell a written joke that I write anyway. It's either I didn't write it funny, it wasn't funny when I wrote it, or it wasn't funny when I told it. It's just the memorization got in the way of the flow. I don't think rap artists really write maybe they do, maybe that's their bag. But a lot of the rap artists that I've listened to, it sounds like they got up and rapped it, and then they wrote it. It's like musicians. It's a misnomer that they write songs. They don't. The musicians that I've talked to, songwriters, I'm talking about, No, what they do is they write the melody. That comes first. 9 times out of 10. Now, sometimes just a poem or a song will come to them word for word, and they just, okay, man. Well, and then they fudge it a little, fix it, written. But 9 times out of 10 of all the songwriters that I've talked to, and which is a lot, I asked them that question. How do you write a song? They say, well, I get the melody first, and then I write the word. Then the melody causes the words to come.
Okay.
Just by listening to the sounds of the music, you get a sentence or a word flow. So I mean, even Dylan does it that way. So I guess I was doing a natural thing. I discovered a natural thing that songwriters do. I just would get up and talk it, and then fix it in the talking, getting it down to tighter and tighter. Steely, I would say. Well, my college buddy would say that. Well, no, he was a stand-up comedian, though. We were talking about how you hone something down to it's tight, so you could just not bother with it anymore and just do it. And he would say, steely. Because I don't know, did you ever play marbles when you were a kid?
No, but I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, but it's okay. You dig a little hole in the ground. It has to, dirt. There has to be dirt. There's no dirt anymore. There's no way you can, it's all grass or lots of weeds or a house. There's no room for marbles anymore. So, but one of the marbles that sometimes there was a rule, you can't use a steely. Basically, a steely was a ball bearing the size of a marble. That was a steely. Well, if you flick it, you know how you do with the marble, you flick it and try to knock a guy away from the hole. You try to get your marble into the hole. Well, if you use a steely and you flick it hard enough at another guy's marble, you could crack his marble. It was a steely, man. So a lot of times when you're playing marbles, that was a law before you started. What's the rules? Okay, no steelies. Oh, wow. Okay. And then there was a big marble, and you could use it, but it was just a little bigger than your regular run-of-the-mill marbles. It was like the difference between a hard ball and a softball.
Okay.
That was a size relationship. So for marbles. So sometimes you'd say, okay, can I use a steely? And somebody would say, yeah, because they figure, well, I got a very hard marble, And some kids did. You hit it with a steely, it wouldn't crack. So you'd say, okay, can we use steelies? They go, yeah. And then you would get a steely that was bigger than the ordinary ball bearing. It was like a big ball bearing. But you say, hey, man, we could use steelies. You didn't say what size. Bingo, crack. Screw you. So, but that's where I don't know how I got off on that track, but that's why I never wrote anything. I would just get up and just do it off the top of my head, and it would come out right. In other words, other people would try. Now, there's other comedians who did that. Lenny Bruce does that. Joe Coy does that. Bill Burr does it a little. Well, you just get up and you riff, and then that goes into the set. Just something that just gets you so. It's so big and juicy, you just can't miss. It's just like waiting for you to just talk about it. Yeah.
But so we didn't really talk about your time as a painter. Now, would you say that process was similar to your painting process, or would you just kind of get like an image in your head and just paint it, or paint the way you felt?
Well, there's a lot of different ways, and maybe that applies to my comedy too. In other words, you hear certain things, and certain things make you want to talk about it when you get up on the stage. So yeah, I didn't write it, but certain things influence you enough to you where it becomes conscious. Wow, man, if I could talk about homelessness, that would be I could riff on that. Because I was homeless for a while. I lived in my car for a year. So so in painting, different things would bring that creative urge to, I got to deal with that. I'll tell you one thing that fascinated me that I used to explain what you just heard was, what the gunwales on a boat is? gunwales on a rowboat. It's a siding, where the
oars fit.
Where the oars fit into.
Okay, sure.
That line on the boat that goes from the tip all the way to the back.
Okay.
That's the gunwale. So I was sitting one day in a marina looking at the boats, and some was small. So I noticed that a very small boat, I was looking at the gunwales. The line that the gunwale makes. So if you were to draw that line, it's a very interesting Brancusi line, if anybody knows about Brancusi. It's just a very pure, beautifully curved line that is a very subtle, it goes around from the back, curves around towards the center of the front, because it's going to meet the other line from the other side. So suddenly, it not only curves around to meet that line, but it curves up and back in, it curves out as it goes back and then it curves around, and then it goes around back in and up. And that line, and then sometimes it curves just as it goes up, curves just up down a little. It's a beautiful line, just if you take away the boat and everything else. That's how a painter thinks. At least that's how I think. So that time when I was watching a boat in a marina, the line of one of the boat's gunwales got to me, and that created a painting. So, I wasn't looking for a gunwale. I wasn't looking to make a painting, but something stuck out, a line, something that deals with painting or drawing. So that's where you get your creation. Something sticks out to you. It could be a person, the way the person looks, the nose of the person, the ear of the person, the body language of the person, the way his person's legs are crossed. It just turns you on, and you go, wow, I got to draw that. It must be drawn. This joke must be told. This story has got to be gotten out of me. Yeah, and it's a great feeling. And artists just wait for that feeling. It's the act of creation. It's just it's why you get up and think you're thirsty. I got to get a drink. It's the same thing. It just occurs to you. I'm thirsty. Okay, I'll get a drink. Boom. You get a drink. It's a thirst. It's a need. It's a want. It's a desire. Yeah.
I like that. So it's really like a detail of something else that helps you to create something different on canvas.
Or it's just the whole thing that turns you on, just like the line did. Like somebody standing a certain way. I was watching a girl. I was in a coffee house.
Okay.
Starbucks. Sure. Give him a plug. So I was in a Starbucks, and I was looking out the window. You can sit at the window and look outside. So right outside was a bus stop on the sidewalk outside. So there was a girl, a schoolgirl, who was waiting for a bus. So her back was to me. She had a book bag on her back. A little
backpacks. Yeah.
And and so, but she was standing on one foot more than the other. So so her hips were kind of tilted. Kind of casual, just standing, waiting. Her shoulders were tilted one way, her hips were tilted the other way, and her bag was hanging. And she had black hair, and that was hanging down over And I thought, wow, that's a great body language. Wait. It says to me, the way she's standing, this person, if I drew that person, you would know this person was waiting. It's a waiting posture. And I was sitting inside, and I just got a piece of paper. I think it was a napkin, and I drew her. And then I transferred it into my computer, and then I made a painting of it, of just a girl waiting for a bus. And then, that was a very simple painting. Mm-hmm. But the thing that caught me, like just the one line of the gunwale of the boat, was the skeleton. Her standing, the waiting. I said, however she's standing, it says something. It says waiting. It doesn't say running. It doesn't say anger. It says waiting. And I wanted to capture that. I wanted to capture waiting, not her. But when you looked at this, I wanted you to see, wow, she's waiting. Mm-hmm. He captured waiting. So it's again, it doesn't have to be a piece of something, a part of it. It can be the whole thing, but you want to capture the essence of the whole thing, not the whole thing. If I paint you, say your face. I don't want to paint your face like I can take a photograph. What do I need, a painting? But there's something about what your face would say to me that I wanted to convey to an audience if it was hanging in my house. And I said, oh, that person is probably thinking that he's thirsty. I want to get what does it say? Like that, yeah, as opposed to what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's what it's telling me, the story.
Sure.
So I don't know. Hope that clears that up.
No, that's interesting enough. In other words, I mean, there's something that's going to speak to you as the artist, and you want to convey that to
that what it spoke to me, not what it is, but what it said to me. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up soon, but I just want to throw one last question at you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So, having done all this, I mean, is there anything in your life that you felt that you still want to do, or you think you got it covered?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I've got one almost covered now. So when I started out, there was 3 things or 4 things that I wanted to do. I've ever since I was a kid, about 15, was I didn't want to die stupid. That was I'll be a big one, man. I don't want to die stupid. Second one was I want to learn to play a musical instrument. Third thing is I wanted to learn to sing. I was a silent singer in kindergarten. Larry because I would sing off key. I wanted to learn to sing. And I wanted to write something. I want to be a writer like Carl. Mm-hmm. I want to write a book. And I wanted to be in movies and be funny. So that's 5 things I just named. And some of them are there, some I'm still working on. So I got to be funny. I got to be in movies. I'm learning to play a musical instrument, the guitar. I'm learning to sing. And now what I want to do is I want to write another book. And I want to go back to do stand-up. Stand-up is my first love, so I gave it up to make a lot of money. Acting second, and to keep the cops away from me.
They're not going to bother you this time around, Larry.
Well, yeah, I think so. But no, the reason that I got off the stage was to join Second City because of the cops. And yes, they left me alone. However, this is very interesting. I just started this just now. When I did join the committee in Second City, and then we went to San Francisco in the committee, the FBI was tracking the committee because of our satire, and Nixon was president. So we would have FBI agents in the audience. Now, they didn't come up on the stage. They didn't blow their cover. Mm-hmm. But we found out later that they had tapped, Nixon's FBI had tapped our director's phone. He discovered the tap. Yeah, so it was still the cops. I mean, they didn't come into the theater and take us off the stage. They just recorded stuff and watched it. But, because we weren't doing anything that they could actually, we never were busted.
Right.
But they were watching us. They were in the audience. They had their eyes on it. So, So I really don't have, I'm working on all the bucket lists, I guess, is the kind of thing you're asking me. I'm working on them all. There's about 5. Some I've done already. Some I'm still working on. But you always have to have a bucket list. Don't get rid of your bucket list. Don Quixote, The Impossible Dream. and don't trip over your own dick. That's the other one. So if you put it all together, you'll be fine. Okay.
Okay. So everybody, the book again is called That Guy, a cautionary memoir. The author right here with us, Mr. Larry Hankin. Larry, thank you so much for
Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you. Great closing comment. Thank you. Okay, and I got to go too. I have a meeting.
Be a rebel. Follow the show at Sherpalution on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
A very special thanks to Larry Hankin for spending some time here in the Sherpa Screening Room up on top of Mount Podcastia. And a special thanks to you for listening here on either your favorite podcast app or Sherpalution.com, wherever you may choose to listen. I'm out there. There's plenty of stuff. If you look on the website, you can see there's all sorts of platforms that you can hear this show on. So you've always got plenty of choices, just in case you're listening for the very first time. And you can follow me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Sherpalution. Just look for that word, and we'll be there, and you can find out what's going on with the show. And you'll get to see all the fun little promos that I get to do for these episodes. But thanks again for coming by, and you'll be hearing from us soon, of course. Until the next time, Mr. Bruce, lead us out of here. And I say to you, Viva la Sherpalution.
Thanks for listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. I'm Mr. Bruce, and this has been a Sherpalu Studios production. Viva la Sherpalution!